And we're back here at Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, speaking with Bob Richardson. He's the director of Canada Soccer, lots of experience with international sport and Canada's involvement. And Bob, I do want to talk, because you've got such experience with the Panam Games and with the Olympic bids and so on. International competition, I don't have to tell you, costs a lot of money. Elite athletes are not cheap. But tell us a little bit about, through your experience, about what some of the upsides are for Canada.
Well, I look at the Pan Am Games as a good example of that. A lot of people were, what is a Pan Am Games? When we were starting out on this. It was a good multi-sport game involving, I can't remember now, I think 30 countries. But what it did by hosting it here in the Greater Toronto area is we got a lot of infrastructure built. We had a sports facility infrastructure deficit in this area. We got a fantastic swimming program out in Scarborough, in Markham. We got a village built in downtown Toronto with a 14-acre park. There's now a great YMCA at that facility, and it's also housing for George Brown College. We got cycling in Milton, and we got a new stadium in Hamilton, which probably also helped save the CFL franchise. So if you do these things properly, you can get a lot of good facilities out of it. And 8 years later, all those facilities are busy. They're being used by high-performance athletes. They're being used by the community. And in the case of the swimming complex in Scarborough at U of T, it's being used by students too as well. So I think you can do these things well. You can also do these things poorly. When they did the Olympics in Athens, as an example, they mothballed a lot of the infrastructure afterwards, and that's a real waste of money. Yeah. So we tried to do as much as possible to make sure that didn't happen. And so far, 8 years later, it's been a success. So, as I said, you can do it right, you can do it wrong. So far, it seems that we got it right, at least on the Pan Am Games.
Tell us a little bit about the public-private partnerships that are part of this as well, because it's not, I'm presuming it's not just taxpayer or government money, right?
It would be taxpayer government money. Obviously, there is revenue from ticket sales. There's a lot of revenue that comes in. Of all the ones I've done, this is the one that's probably the most revenue neutral. The other ones are an investment by governments in infrastructure. But this one, every ticket will be sold out. Every hotel room will be done. Restaurants will be full. There'll be a full slate of entertainment that will be attended. Transportation will be busy. So as you go through, the amount of revenue that gets generated from that against the costs, which are fairly modest, as I said, because we're not building a ton of infrastructure, it's pretty good. So I would say on this one, it's decent. It's about a $300 million cost. And we're looking, I think, roughly, I'm giving rough numbers here, each of the three governments to put that in up front, and then the revenue will be generated as it goes along too as well. So it's a relatively reasonable approach to these things. Discussions are going on with the federal government and the province, which is appropriate at this time. But I think we'll be able to come to a positive conclusion, hopefully in the next few months.
It seems like every cycle you do have this discussion amongst the public or certain members of the public as to whether it's all worthwhile, though. So how do you marshal your arguments in that situation?
Look, you're going to find, I found in this, having done this a few times now, there's going to be 20 or 25% of the population doesn't like it, regardless of what you're doing. Right. Like we did just about everything right on the Pan Am Games. And I bet you if we did a poll, you'd still find 20 or 25% of people who didn't like it or were opposed. I think you've got to be open about it. You got to show people the benefits of it. You got to show people that you're not spending wildly on these sort of things. And this one is pretty modest. As I said, renovations at a stadium. We'll build 2 training facilities. There's operational costs involved in these things. That's about it. And security. That's about it. So, it is a reasonable approach.
Gotcha. We're going to finish off the discussion, Bob. We've got one more segment with you. Thank you for your time, as always.
Great.
I know you've got a lot on your plate. We'll be back after these messages. Do want to talk a little bit about other countries' experiences as well. Can we learn from that? Both the good things and bad things. As you know, there's a lot to be learned. Stay with us. We'll be right back.